Right on. Looks like we got some attendees joining. Thanks for joining, folks. We're going to let you get settled in for the next couple of minutes, and then we'll hand it over to Case. Oh yeah, they're starting to pour in. So thanks for joining, folks. Just a few, or actually about a minute and a half until we get started. Thanks for joining us. See some familiar names on our attendees list. Good to see you, folks. Just about 30 more seconds till we get started. Takes a little while for our attendees to walk from one virtual conference room to another.
To the other, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? Do they have to disconnect their Zoom session and open up a new one?
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. Yep. They're starting to come in.
Luckily, Zoom is pretty quick in connecting.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. Great platform. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to get started. I'd like to thank you all for joining. We have Kees Bagerman from Nutanix joining us out of the Netherlands. I've been working with Kees and his team for quite some time at Nutanix to produce reference architectures. We've done some webinars together, you know, lots of good stuff. Certainly Kees is very familiar and no foreigner when it comes to end user compute, VDI, and all of these performance related topics. You know, we'd like to extend our thanks to Nutanix to sponsoring today's event. And I will be sitting beside Kees virtually, answering any questions you may have, or at least queuing them up so he can get them back to you. They also have a booth here in the expo hall, so if you want to get some questions answered a little quickly, you can always head over to the Nutanix virtual booth as well. So Kees, thanks for joining us. I'm going to hand over the session to you and give you the next 15 minutes to educate everybody on the benefits of HCI and AHV.
Thank you so much, Blair. So as said, the next 15 minutes, I'm going to try to inform you about the benefits of hyperconverged infrastructure and AHV, specifically for an end-user computing world. My name is Kees Bagerman. Typically, when I introduce myself, I say that I'm a doer of things at Nutanix. My official title is Technical Director in the Engineering Department. I co-lead the Performance Solutions Engineering team within Nutanix, and my team specifically focuses on end-user computing and databases. I've got a blog. If you have questions after this session that I might not be able to answer because it's only 15 minutes, hit me up on Twitter, as I'm there as well. So first of all, let's start with the fundamental items of what Nutanix is, what we do, and the problems we try to solve. So if we look at the current market and the current mindset of people, there's a lot of cloud-first strategies out there. And why would you go cloud? We asked, and we like in our conversations, we're looking at the reasons why people go for one solution versus another. And here are some of the reasons that we've seen where people would pick for cloud first or public cloud first strategies. First of all, it's a rapid time to market. And deploying applications in just single minutes versus days, weeks, or even months in traditional ways. There's fractional IT consumption. You pay for what you use, you pay for what you need, and only when you need it. So there's no extensive billing. You always have the right amount of resources. And if you don't, you can easily scale up or scale down just the way that you need it. Other items were one-click simplicity. There's not nobody out there that wants to spend a lot of time on infrastructure management. You want to keep focus on what's important, and that's the end user versus keeping the lights on. And the last one, and not the least one, is continuous innovation. when we see that public cloud is getting better with every update that they do, with every single new release of their cloud solution, that's something that is appealing for customers for on-premises as well. So we took all of that and we took that as a foundation for the Nutanix Enterprise Cloud Operating System. So we looked at the typical stack that we saw with networking, your typical three-tier architecture with server, data protection, and storage, the virtualization layer on top of it. And when we look at public cloud, we see app automation and orchestration, and obviously the golden nugget here is multi-cloud management. Having the ability to manage your cloud or clouds, either on-prem or public cloud, via the same management plane. And that's how we came up with the Nutanix Enterprise Cloud Operating System. And basically what it is, it's a convergence of all these layers, both on the hardware side and the software side, into a appliance-based model. Now that evolved into software only or appliance-based, but it's still one solution that can handle all these stacks or all these different components of the stack that we see in this slide. Now, looking at the complete solution, if we look at the Nutanix solution as a whole, it's basically built out of three pillars. That is Nutanix Acropolis, Nutanix Prism, and the last one is Xi Cloud Services by Nutanix. So if we look at Acropolis, that is the data fabric that converges the compute, the storage, and the virtualization to run any application at any scale. Now look at Prism. Prism is that unified management plane to manage your applications and infrastructural components across different data centers and different clouds as well. And finally, with Xi Cloud Services, that is our own cloud service, starting with DR as a service, but extending to other workloads as well. Now, looking at workloads that we power and potential use cases, this is a slide of what we typically see in the field: business critical applications, SAP HANA, IBM Dynamics or Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle databases, Microsoft for remote offices, branch offices, messaging, collaboration, dev test, big data, and generic server virtualization. All of that powered by Nutanix, and a massive uptick in customer base. Right now, we're talking about end-user computing, and it's a topic that lies close to my heart. As Blair already said, I've got some history in the end-user computing space. So moving on to delivering end-user computing with Nutanix, or delivering end-user computing solutions with Nutanix. So looking at the state of the union for end-user computing, I personally believe that the Nutanix platform is untouchable for end-user computing. There's a strong corporate relationship and product integration with Citrix. We've onboarded thousands of customers since late 2016. Largest deployments are over 80,000 seats of VDI, and there's a healthy mix of vSphere, AHV, and Hyper-V, where we see AHV being the primary hypervisor for our end-user computing deployments. So we're seeing a massive uptick in AHV adoption for Citrix, NAP, and Desktop. Now looking at VDI and application virtualization running on Nutanix, we can deliver great experience at any scale for all types of users. Our typical approach would be start small and scale up. As we don't have that forklift upgrade mechanism that you would need in a legacy three-tier infrastructure, we're able to scale per node, scale per block, or maybe scale per multiple blocks if you want that, and design around that construct as well. So start small, grow big, mix and match, have different CPU types, have different GPU types in your cluster, but still be supported and in your configuration. We have a validated end-to-end solution that can be deployed a lot faster than your typical three-tier architecture. In fact, before I joined Nutanix, I worked as a privately owned system integrator. And the reason one of the reasons why I joined Nutanix was this deploying speed of deployment of your Nutanix infrastructure. We were comparing a legacy 3-tier converged infrastructure, or I was in charge of implementing that. And I had 4 engineers working for 4 weeks on that infrastructure. And then one of the Nutanix SEs at the time came by, said, "Hey, I've got a block in my car. Let's set it up." I was kind of holding back because I needed to talk to data center. I needed to talk to the networking guys, see if we've got cooling and power and all of that. And he told me, "Don't worry about it. We'll fix it." And 2.5 hours later, I was spinning up my first VMs. So I had 4 engineers working for 4 weeks on this converged infrastructure, and I had 1 sales engineer bringing me that infrastructure in 2.5 hours, and I was spinning up my first VMs. And for me, that was a validation of this statement. We can slash the total cost of ownership and pay-as-you-grow and introduce a pay-as-you-grow model with the world's most deployed hyperconverged solution. Now, looking at simplifying the infrastructure stack, and with my experience as trying to be an architect, I've dealt with the left side of this stack more than I could care for. And what I've seen and what I like in doing in architectures is taking out components that are not needed. So if I can simplify things, I will, and that's what we have with the Nutanix stack. So if we compare left to right, we see a completely different stack, a completely simplified stack. Now, I already told you about linear scale-out performance, and this is something that we tested with login VSI. So we went out, built out the lab, we tested with 4 nodes. We got a certain amount of users. We tested with 8 nodes. We got double the amount of users. And then we tested with 12 nodes. And we added another couple of users. What we saw was that, and we've got updated numbers here. So these are older tests, and your mileage may vary in desktop density. The point here is that we saw linear scalability. So with 4 nodes, we had 400 users. With 8 nodes, we got 800 users. With 12 nodes, we had 1,200 users. And to me, that proves the point. That proves the point that we'll scale linear. The data locality mechanisms that we use to actually give that performance to end users works. We expanded the cluster without any negative side effects of scaling it up. So end users are happy, either 400 or 1,200. And that's we actually extended that test, and we took the raw data that we had from login VSI in our testing, and what we did is we plotted this on a graph, and that's what we see here. So what we see is a scale from 300 to 3,000 virtual desktops, and we plotted the response times of applications into this graph. And what we saw that it doesn't really matter if we're running 300 users or 3,000 users from an application perspective. So applications were still responsive, were still as fast as they were with 300 users. And this is just something that you won't be able to get with legacy 3-tier infrastructure. Now, how did we get to that? And that's something that's one of the parts that I typically, or that I really love in our architecture. It's shadow clones. So if you deploy a machine catalog or a desktop pool, doesn't really matter if it's Horizon View or Zen Desktop. But for the phrasing, I'll use Zen Desktop phrasing right now. When we create a master image, we'll take a snapshot. That will create a master vdisk. We will start cloning the VM with the machine catalog creation. So for every VM that we specify in the machine catalog creation, we'll build out a VM, and all the reads will go from the master disks. All the write will go to the differencing disk, and there's an identity disk as well. Identity disk is a 60 meg big. It contains static information. The differencing disk is where all the writes will go. The master vdisk is where all the reads will go. So in a typical situation, you would have reads across the network, writes local. So think this in the example of 1,200 desktops. We've got 1,200 desktops reading across the network, congesting the network. Also, there's latency creeping up because of the networking traffic. So what we do as Nutanix is we'll mark or monitor the access span of the master vDisk or to the master vDisk. And when we see remote reads from 2 CVMs, we'll mark the master vDisk as immutable, and we'll start copying it to the local host. So that means that every host will have a local copy to read, and obviously the writes are already local. And that enables us to scale up until the architecture of the broker will allow us to, or the hypervisor, because performance will stay the same no matter how many hosts you'll have running, because we've got a local copy of for reads, and all the writes are local anyway. Obviously, we've got integrated data center management. You won't need all these tools. We just have Prism that provides you with the insights. There's additional services that we can offer as well. So Nutanix Files, our software-defined file server solution. It comes with the current Nutanix cluster. It's built out on distributed architecture, single namespace without capacity limits, easily scalable for either performance or capacity, and it's high available. Ideal situation for profiles for your VHDX vDisk store for PVS, or if you're a Microsoft customer and you want to store your FS Logix profiles, you can use files for that as well. Now with AOS 5.5, we introduced NVIDIA vGPU support, so full support for NVIDIA vGPU on the cards, on current cards. T4 is coming, but currently it's the M series, P series that are available, and some of the V series as well that are available for Nutanix AHV. Full Citrix Cloud integration. So if you go to the UI in Prism, there's an option that says connect to Citrix Cloud. This will take you through a wizard to define the number of cloud connectors you want. It will ask you for your ID, customer ID, your key, and if you fill that in, it will guide you through the steps of creating a Citrix Cloud connection. So you'll be up and running in under 5 minutes, as it took me longer to download the file to with the key and the customer ID, and then to run through this wizard. So all in all, if we want to conclude this presentation, because I had 15 minutes, the EUC integration, scalable infrastructure, including Nutanix files and network segmentation, MCS support for AHV, PVS support for AHV, vGPU support for AHV. There's a plugin for Director. We've got data locality, and obviously the Citrix Cloud one-click integration is a great way of introducing our technology with Citrix. So with that, I'm just about to my 15 minutes. So if there's questions, I don't know if we have time.
Yep, no time, Case, but all okay. Great stuff. Thank you so much again for sponsoring and for the information. It was great. We have Hilko, who's presenting now in the other other auditorium. So please enjoy that session. Case, thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Yep. See ya.